MPs have migrated back to Ottawa from the week in their riding. Let's get the view from the Hill on today's water cooler conversations with the Tuesday trio. Marco Mendicino, the Toronto Liberal MP. Karen Vecchio is a Southwest Ontario Conservative. Nikki Ashton, Northern Manitoba NDP MP. Welcome to you all. Nice to have you back again.
Thanks, Don.
All right, I mean, this change to equalize the age of consent, I mean, I didn't honestly know this, but vaginal and anal sex had different ages of consent, except between a husband and a wife. And then the disappointment of someone to keep an eye on all this discrimination in the various sexual minority communities. Nikki, good moves all around. What's your view?
Well, we congratulate the government for removing this section of the Criminal Code, Section 195. This is something that we in the NDP have been pushing for quite a long time. But there is more to go. Many people have criminal records, and these criminal records need to be expunged. And we'd like to hear from the government what they're going to do on that front going forward.
Okay, Karen, what are your thoughts on this?
Well, you know, I think in time, I mean, this legislation was from 30 years ago. Times have changed, and many Canadians are more accepting. So let's look at the legislation and see what it reads, but I believe it is a good move of the government as well.
I can't believe there were actually charges laid in the last few years, like almost 50 of them. Marco, you're a lawyer, but obviously this is something you believe in as well?
Absolutely, I do. I'd be surprised to see whether or not any of those charges actually came to fruition in the way of a trial. Yeah. Exactly. But look, this is all about equality before the law, and the Charter provides very important protections, and that is that you can't be discriminated on the basis of sexual orientation. A very proud day. I want to thank my colleagues from the opposition for congratulating the government. I know that this has been a long journey for the LGBTQ2 community. We do have Randy Boissonnault as a special advisor to the Prime Minister, and you know, there are many others within our caucus, like Rob Oliphant, and I'm sure on the other side of the aisle, who will remain very invested on this file. So a good, proud day for the community, for the House, and for the public.
Why does it take so long? I mean, an apology seems pretty straightforward. These were cases of fairly overt discrimination in the military and the public service. Why do we have to have a specific MP to work on this? Just do it. Or is there other implications I'm not seeing here?
Well, I think sometimes change doesn't come as quickly as we would like. And those who have taken up the cause would tell you that with much more credibility than I would, especially those who have been discriminated against. But it just today really reaffirms that you know, vigilance and commitment have to be the watchwords. I was very proud to march with the Prime Minister in the Toronto Pride Parade, the first time a sitting Prime Minister ever marched in a Pride Parade, and he did so in Toronto and Vancouver and Montreal and elsewhere, and I think Edmonton as well. And so, you know, that's not just symbolism. Those are very, very concrete examples of the commitment to the community.
Is that symbolism or is that substantive?
Well, it is a lot of symbolism. I mean, you know, today obviously, like I said, is a very important move, but we need to go further. And Don, you said it. I mean, why can't we just make it right with those in the armed forces who were kicked out for being gay or lesbian?
Oh, people killed themselves, you know, they were kicked out.
Exactly, and we have an indication that the government is interested. Well, why don't they just make that wrong right? In the case of the decision today, why don't we expunge the records of those that were already charged? Why don't we remove the blood ban on gay men? And those are a number of key points that have very much to do with the daily lives of LGBTQ people in our country that we need to see leadership from the government on. So yes, today was important, but we need to go further.
All right. I want to talk. You one day.
No, it's all good.
Okay. NAFTA. Donald Trump looks like this is going to be job one for him, is dealing with this. We have offered to open it up without being asked, actually. Your party, the Conservatives, are pushing fairly hard to defend NAFTA, but
absolutely,
is there not something to be said? You might as well surrender and realize you're open to negotiation, or do they make a tactical mistake doing that?
I personally see it as a tactical mistake. I think that we are there to negotiate if necessary, but we're not going to say, here, let's do this. I think, you know, we could have been open to that. If the government could have been open to negotiations if Trump had brought it forward, if the president-elect brought it forward. But we immediately showed our hand, and that's something that we should be aware of. But NAFTA is such an important agreement to all Canadians, especially in our riding and throughout southwestern Ontario. It's such an important thing to make sure that our goods are getting over to the United States.
Yeah, but you've got a lot of stuff going across across the states on just-in-time deliveries. And
Yes.
Trump, the plants over there need it, so they're not going to
absolutely.
thicken up that border and put blockades up, are they?
Well, you've got to be cautious. We've got to see how things unfold. We have to wait to see how things unfold. I think that's going to be the biggest thing. He has been elected for 1 week today, and we haven't seen what's coming yet. So let's see how it goes, and let's make sure we remain a sovereign country. That's what we are, and make sure we do what's best for Canadians.
How far can we go to start yelping at Justin Trudeau to defend NAFTA at this stage of the game, or do we wait and see? What's the right way to go on this, Nikki?
Well, I think more broadly with the Trump presidency, what's going to be important is to have a prime minister who stands up for Canadian values and Canadian jobs, whether it's with respect to NAFTA or
Don't use Canadian
more
values
broadly.
in that. You know, you'll get Kelly Leitch into this conversation.
And, well, the opposite of what Kelly Leitch is talking about. Look, I mean, a lot of Canadians are very concerned about where trade agreements have brought our country. A lot of our sectors have been hollowed out. You add on that foreign ownership running rampant in our country. I know it from my own mining community. This has cost Canadian jobs. A lot of these trade agreements are increasingly not just about trade. They're about all sorts of other provisions, including investor-state provisions that have put a number of Canadian sectors at risk as well, Canadian resources up for grabs. And what we need is a prime minister and a government that's going to defend Canadian jobs and defend Canadian livelihoods vis-a-vis the U.S. and everybody else.
Aren't we the mouse trying to negotiate with the elephant?
No, of course not. And I would disagree with Nikki's characterization about NAFTA. This agreement has been overwhelmingly positive. It involves 7% of the world's population, 28% of the total global GDP. There is a $20.1 trillion economy at stake there. Look, this agreement has been in place now for over 20 years, about 22 years by my count. Periodically, countries and members of these agreements do take a look to see whether or not there is room for improvement. In the case of NAFTA, there have been 11 occasions where we have improved the agreement. And look, these are very early days in the Trump administration. Their transition team is just getting up to speed, and the Prime Minister has stated his firm commitment to work with the Trump administration on an array of issues, including on trade. So we move past the election, we turn the page, and we're now focused on doing what is in the best interest of Canadians.
I'm not sure how good a poker player he is, because he's basically said, here's my cards, let's negotiate.
Well, no, I think what he has done is he has indicated a willingness to work with the president-elect. And that's what Canadians expect a government to do. There's too much at stake here on trade, on the economy, on security, for us not to work with the United States of America. And so it is absolutely imperative that a responsible government would sit down with the Trump administration and to get down to finding out whether or not there are ways in which we can improve policy in all of these areas. So we're committed to doing that, and I'm confident that the Prime Minister will be able to accomplish some very positive things on behalf of all Canadians.
All right. Final topic. Yesterday, about this time, the House leaders started slapping time limits on a few important issues: the revamp of the Canada Pension Plan, budget implementation. I guess. Are they starting to learn from the Harper Conservatives here, Nikki, how to manage a House of Commons, or is the honeymoon over? How do you see this?
Well, I would definitely say the honeymoon's over. But look, I mean, we were promised sunny ways. Canadians were fed up with the number of times that Harper and his government brought in closure. They saw it as muzzling parliamentarians and silencing Canadians. And lo and behold, this new government that promised something different is doing very much the same on critical issues, of course, relating to the budget, relating to budget implementation. We also identified a troubling loophole that needs to be fixed with the terms of the CPP. So the solution here is not to shut down debate. And frankly, I think a lot of Canadians are catching on to the fact that this government is following suit with the previous one in some ways.
All right, I'll get your response to that, and then I'll get you to get the last word.
I'll wait till the opposition.
Okay, well, go ahead, Garrett, then. You guys perfected the art of this, are you really going to blame the Liberals for following your lead?
I'm not going to say that they're following the lead, but I'm saying they were promising sunny ways, and we have seen many changes of this government in the last year where we have seen time allocation. Dominic LeBlanc done it, and now we have the the House Leader doing it once again. And as Nikki pointed out, these are important pieces of legislation. The CPP changes are very, very important. And we may have all different views on that. And I think it's really important that we're able to debate that. At the same time, there are things that we're not bringing to debate, like sending our troops to Africa. So it's really strange how some things they're being transparent on some things, and other things we have no idea what's going on.
Inconsistency, she says, Marco.
On any analysis, much more transparency than the last administration. I would just say, on-time allocation, 55 sitting days from September to December, 44 of which are dedicated to government business. Of those 44 days, 25% dedicated to CPP and the budget. And Canadians have elected us to do a job, and that is to deliver on the priorities which we campaigned on. So that means long-term retirement security. It means tax relief for middle-class Canadians. Those aren't just talking points. Those actually matter to people who work very hard and who expect their parliamentarians to deliver. Okay. A little bit also ironic hearing some criticism from my colleagues, and I think that has to be viewed through the lens of the way that we have achieved some multi-partisan cooperation on opposition motions when it comes to refugees, when it comes to the Indigenous community, and even today.
The whole list, Marco.
There you go.
We're out of time. Thank
Sorry,
you.
Don. Thanks. I had to.
We're tilting dangerously into talking points there. All right. Thank you all. We'll see you next week. Coming up.